talking about hospitality here, and there are sermons that you're right, this is one of those, that you're afraid that when you actually preach it's going to fly apart. Because what I'm trying to do is hold two things together because I think the Bible holds them together, and one of them is loyalty, and the other one is hospitality, and it sounds like those go in two different directions to us, but in the Scriptures they come together, and so that's what I want to explore with you. And I'm going to use two scriptures. One is Hebrews 13, verses 1 through 5, and then the other one is from the story of Ruth. But I'm just going to read for you from the story of Ruth. And so if you'd rise, read the scripture. First chapter of Ruth, beginning in verse 16. Now this is in the middle of the story, of course. But I'll go back and I'll explain to you. If you don't know the story, I'll explain to you where we're at. Ruth is talking to her mother-in-law, Naomi. Naomi is urging her to go back home. And Ruth replied, "Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." And when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. And so the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem, and when they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred because of them. And the women exclaimed, "Can this be Naomi?" "Don't call me Naomi," she told them. "Call me Mara. Because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me." And so Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law, arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. You can be seated. So we're people of the Word. Words matter to us. The Scriptures matter to us. The Scriptures are words, they matter to God. They are important to us. And sometimes words get lost in translation, and so we were in China, you know this by now, and we were in a little village that had been restored, this beautiful little village, and there was a canal right down the center of the village, and on the canal there were these signs, and I took a few pictures. Now, I don't know what the Chinese says, maybe some of you do, but the English says, "Prohibit to climb the water carefully." I have to tell you, I puzzled about that one for a while. And then there was this one. I know this one, it's my fault, it's glary, but it says, "Take good care of," I like this is a philosophy, take good care of flowers and plants at the foot of mercy. Or this one, "The river-happy person cherish life." Now, I'm sure that the Chinese has something, this is a kind of literal translation of the Chinese in which somehow it didn't go into English easily. What I want to talk to you about is a word which has a little of that kind of difficulty. The word is a single word in the Old Testament. The word is hesed, the Hebrew up there above, and then the pronunciation below. The New Testament didn't translate hesed exactly by the same word as hesed, which means something like faithfulness, but it translated it with this word, agape, which we translate as love, only it's one of those many kinds of love words in Greek, and our word is love, and there's the problem, right? We mean way too many things by love. We're kind of deprived in our language. English is deprived in expressing the kind of exact nuances that you get in agape and in hesed, because we mean by love too many things. We mean by love a good cup of coffee in the morning. In China, you can't get coffee. So, 2 weeks. Withdrawal. Till I got to Hong Kong. You can't even get tea. I mean, tea's got a bad coffee, but sorry, tea drinkers. But the Chinese drink tea, but they don't drink tea in the morning. I mean, when you need the little kick. So anyway, I talk about the love of coffee. And there's also the love of Adria. Those are not the same thing. This, by the way, is Adria on the top of a very steep climb, some thousands of steps up the Great Wall. And if I had backed up a little bit and was a better photographer, you'd actually see it was the Great Wall. Now it just looks like a wall, right? I mean, we love different things. In English, we love your car, or you love your house, or you love some object that you see. You get a new dress or a new outfit, and you say, "I love it," And then you talk about the love of somebody that's near to you, like Adria. It's not the same thing. How do we get at this word hesed? The NIV sometimes translates it as God's faithful love, which is a pretty good way to translate it. It gets at the idea that in this word is not just love but faithfulness, not just love but mercy. It's kind of covenant love. But maybe you get at it best by telling stories. This is my mother-in-law, Adria's mother. When I think of hesed, I think of Anne Vandergreen. I think of someone who, when her husband got Alzheimer's, kept him as long as she covered for him. It took a long time before we figured out exactly what was going on because she was so good at covering for his increasing difficulties. And then she kept him a long time, probably longer than she could, in the house. And then when she couldn't keep him in the house anymore, she came and visited him every day in the care home where he was. And whenever you'd go there, his only one question would be, "Where's Anne?" And she had probably just been there. And then she began, after he died, she began to develop her own dementia. And as she slipped into a deeper and deeper dementia, it's her sister who stepped up. Her sister, who's older than she is, comes every day to visit Anne. That's hesed. Loyalty. At the heart of the biblical message, at the very heart of the biblical message is loyalty. Sometimes we talk about belief and faith. There's lots of ways to translate faith, the words for faith in the Bible, the Hebrew words and the Greek words for faith in the Bible. But one of the ways to translate them is loyalty. And the great theme of the Bible is that God, despite all that we do, God is always loyal. God has hesed. We mess it up sometimes. This passage this is one of the great passages in the explaining the gospel. You want to explain the gospel, you turn to Romans 3. This is 20 and 21, I think, or 21 and 22. Now, apart from the law, the righteousness of God has been made known, to which the law and the prophets, the Old Testament, which the Old Testament testifies. So the Old Testament testifies, and instead of righteousness, which we kind of spoiled that word, let's call it rightness. The rightness of God, the making things right of God has been made known, to which the law and the prophets testify. This rightness is given, and then it says, through faith in Jesus Christ to all who believe. It makes it sound like it starts with us. But this is what it says in the Greek. This rightness is given through the hesed, the faithfulness, the loyalty of Jesus Christ to all who believe. It starts with Jesus. And so I just kind of paged through the Bible and picked out a few texts. You remember we did with the Jacob series, we went across this passage. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you till I've done with you what I've promised. That's Hesed, at the very heart of the Jacob story is, I will be with you and I will not leave you until I've done what I've promised. That speaks not only, well, imagine reading this passage when you're an Israelite in Babylon. And it looks like God has abandoned you. And you go back to the ancestral story, to the family story, and you read this, I am with you, I will not leave you until I've done what I have promised you. Hang on to that. Or this one. He's speaking to Joshua. This is in the transition between Moses and Joshua. The Lord himself goes before you, and will be with you. He will not leave you or forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. The great theme in the Bible is God's unfailing faithfulness, God's loyalty. Or this one, do not reject or forsake me, my God, my Savior. That's the prayer. And then here comes the answer. Though my father and mother forsake me, the Lord will receive me. The Lord makes a house for me, right? Or you can take the parables of Jesus. You know the prodigal son? What's the theme of the prodigal son? The theme of the prodigal son is that the father's house is always open. Though father and mother may reject me, the Lord will always receive me. I can always walk up the lane and walk in to the house of the Father. Or this one, I'm going to be talking about this passage in the class after the service, spirit class. This is in John 14. John 14 through 16 is one of the great expositions of the Spirit. I will not leave you as orphans, Jesus says. I will come to you. Which brings us to Hebrews 13. It's our theme passage. You know how it starts? I've been over this about 3 times already. Keep on loving one another as brothers and sisters. That's Philadelphia, the love of the fellowship, the love of the community. And then it goes right on to say, and do not forget to show hospitality to strangers. That's philoxenia, the love of strangers. Don't forget to show love to strangers, for by doing so, some people have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. There's a story there, you know. Always in the Bible, there's a story. And the story is the story of Abraham, Genesis 18. You know, he's out there in the desert. He's got a board. He's looking out his tent. All of a sudden, 3 strangers ride up or walk up or however they come. And he starts this. He wants to invite them in, and he shows them hospitality. He's almost kind of running around crazy for a minute. He says to Sarah, start baking, get things ready. And he says to his servants, sacrifice the fatted calf, and I think it's a goat actually, and he starts the barbecue going. He's the guy, he grills, and then he says to them, now stay as long as you can, because I want. And then he starts to see that these aren't ordinary people at all, that they're angels, and then not just angels, but God. God's walking among him. So there's a principle here. And this principle is one we're going to be working on for the next 3 weeks, which is that you are commanded by Jesus to love the fellowship, to love the church. That's where you start from, but you meet God in the stranger. You get that? You meet God in the stranger. And then it goes on. This is the same passage, Hebrews 13. Continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, and those who are mistreated as if you yourself were suffering. Now it's going to get expanded out. You start to realize that the walls of the church aren't just here, There's a whole bunch of people around your life who are part of Crosspoint in some way or other. The walls of the church go out from here, sometimes in ways that surprise us. Have I ever told you about my barber, Ramon? Ray's Little Barber Shop. It's over on Mission Avenue, just a little bit east of Mountain. And you drive in, you kind of go past the chain link fence. Don't let it intimidate you. And there's Little Ray's Barber Shop. it's operated by Ramon. And one day, just a week or so ago, a couple of weeks ago, Ramon was saying to me, I used to live close to the church. He knows where I preach. I said, oh yeah. I thought, somehow I just can't see Ramon in those houses just south of here. He said, it was in the juvenile facility just down the road. He said, I was there for a few years. I was your neighbor. Ramon's a wonderful person. Continue to remember those in prison as if you were together with them in prison, just down the street here. And those who are mistreated as if you yourself were suffering. And then we get this. Marriage should be honored by all, and the marriage bed should be kept pure, for God will judge the adulterer and the sexually immoral. Do you ever get that feeling that when you read the Bible sometimes of whiplash? You're kind of going down this direction. You start with community, and then you go to the ones who are outside the community in prison and so forth. And then all of a sudden it goes to marriage. But then I started to get it. This is about hesed. This is about loyalty. Loyalty to the community. Loyalty to those who come, to the strangers. Loyalty to those in prison who might be Christians who are being persecuted at that time. Loyalty going outward, and loyalty to your spouse. Loyalty in all your dealings. And then we get this. And this is another love word. Keep your lives free from the love of money. And be content with what you have, but that doesn't quite get it. In the Greek, it says, this is our brand. This is our tropos, our brand. Our brand is that we're not lovers of money. I spent that time in China. And China, in some ways, is ancient, and in some ways is very young. And it's filled now with consumer goods. The freeways around, say, Beijing are full. And you're driving down the freeway and you're seeing all the cars around you, and there's a little smog in the air, and you think, I might be in Southern California for a minute, What happens to a society when it becomes all about the money? And what happens to the United States of America? When people drift out of the churches, as they have been drifting out of the churches, that category of the nuns, those who have no faith, is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and their children aren't going to have any faith at all, and now they have all these consumer goods, all this money, and where will they find their souls? Our brand is that we are not lovers of money, although sometimes you can hardly tell. And then comes this: never will I leave you nor forsake you. Hesed. God's hospitality precedes ours. And so let me tell you this story. It's a story of Ruth. It's a story about a young woman. Well, stories in the Bible, the great important stories in the Bible, often begin with women's stories. You know that? So when you want to start a story about the Exodus, where do you begin? You begin with Shiphrah and Puah. You know who they are? They're the midwives who don't do what Pharaoh says, kill all the boy babies. Shiphrah and Puah refuse to do that. They are the subversives at the beginning, and the whole Exodus story begins not with Moses, not with Aaron, not with the men. It begins with them. Or the story of David. The book of Samuel is the story of David. It's the story of the one who the Messiah is. He's a type of the Messiah. And where does that story begin? It begins with Hannah. This young woman who can't have babies and who wants to have a baby and who prays to God for a baby. And she sings a song, and such a song it is. Mary later sings that same song. That's a tremendously important connection between the Old Testament and the New Testament, that Mary, the mother of Jesus, sings the same song as Hannah sings. Tamar. Can't even tell her story, except to say that she seduced her father-in-law. And out of that came the line of Jesus. And Rahab, prostitute, and Ruth, we're going to tell her story. And Bathsheba, you know who Bathsheba is. And Mary. That's a line in the Old Testament. The great Old Testament scholar Walter Brueggemann says there are two lines in the Old Testament. One line is the kind of official line, the Abraham and Isaac and Jacob and David and Moses and all of those, that kind of official line, and none of those are prizes either. David is an adulterer and a murderer and so forth. But there's also a subversive line. And so when the gospel starts to tell the story of Jesus, it goes back to this line. So we're going to tell the story of just one of them. It's a story about family and famine. What happens to families in famine. It's a story about refugees. We could do a lot of things with this story. We're not going to have time to do that this morning. But what happens is there's a famine in Bethlehem. Bethlehem is house of bread, so there's a kind of irony in that. And Naomi and Elimelech, Naomi's husband, go off to Moab. That's a mistake, if you're reading this as an Israelite, that's kind of a mistake, because Moab is the enemy. And not only that, but there's this thing in Numbers 25. You know this story? It's a story about Baal Peor, the incident at Baal Peor, in which the Israelite men and the Moabite women get together and they begin to worship false gods, and there's this great purge of people. It's something that so marked the consciousness of Israel that when you say the word Moab, you think Baal Peor, Numbers 25. And so off go Naomi and Elimelech, and he's there for a while, and he dies. And they have two sons. And they go wild, and they start pursuing Moabite women, and they marry them. And then they die. Nobody's surprised by this if you're reading this as an Israelite. And then Naomi decides to go home, back to Bethlehem, defeated, alone. And she tells her daughter-in-laws, Orpah and Ruth, that they should go home because there's nothing for them in Israel. There's nothing for them anymore. Go back to your father's house. Go home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your husbands and me. Guess what the word kindness is? Hesed. May the Lord show you loyalty as you have shown loyalty to your husbands and me. That's the theme of the story. And Orpah goes. Eventually, she gets persuaded to go back, but Ruth refuses. And we read this. She makes this fine speech: "Where I go, you will. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. And your people will be my people, and your God, my God. And where you die, I will die. And there I will be buried. And may the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me." That's Hesed. That's loyalty. You want to know what Hesed is? You want to know what God looks like? God looks like Ruth. And so they trudge into Bethlehem, and the women say, "Naomi." And they're stunned by how terrible she looks, the grief in her face. And she says, "Don't call me Naomi anymore. Naomi means pleasant or beautiful or any of those kinds of words. Call me Mara." Means bitter. Because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? And then this deep accusation of God. The Lord has failed me. The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. God isn't loyal. That's what she's saying. Imagine reading this again from Babylon. After Jerusalem has been torn down, the temple has been pillaged, the young men have been slaughtered, and now you're sitting in Babylon and you say, don't call me pleasant, don't call me Israel, call me Mara. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me, the Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. And that's all there is for that first chapter, except right at the end, the barley harvest, right? The barley harvest, what does that mean? It's just kind of a note about the time. Well, we know what it means if you know the story, because what happens is that Ruth goes out in the barley harvest to glean. You know, that was the ancient custom. You let poor people go out in the fields and collect their own grain. It was a kind of way of giving them dignity as well as food. And so Ruth goes out there and she begins to glean. And Boaz, who's a big, rich landowner and also a kinsman, recognizes, sees her, asks, who's that woman? And one thing leads to another, and they get married. And then you get this at the end of the book. So this is the family line of Perez. Listen to this, a lot of names. Perez was the father of Hezron, and Hezron was the father of Ram, and Ram was the father of Amminadab, and Amminadab was the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon was the father of Salmon, and Salmon was the father of Boaz. And Boaz was the father of Obed. And Obed was the father of Jesse. And Jesse was the father of David. And David was the father of Jesus. And none of us would be here today except for Ruth. So what's the point? How does this have to do with hospitality? Here's how it has to do with hospitality. Strangers teach us how to love what we have forgotten how to love and to see it new. Naomi could no longer love her God. She could no longer love her people. She no longer felt like she fit into Israel. It was all to her a great disappointment. Call me Mara. There are people today in this church, I know, for whom this faith has gotten old and stale, and you think, you know what, God isn't really blessing us. God has done this to Crosspoint, or God has done that to Crosspoint, or God has done this to me, or God has done that to me. We are all, in that sense, Naomi, call me Mara. Except that God sends us Ruths and the barley harvest. We learn how to love what we have lost our love for by seeing it in the eyes of the stranger. There are people coming to this church today who love Reformed theology, for example, who know Reformed theology, who are just beginning to understand Reformed theology, and they are coming to this congregation so excited about Reformed theology, and we can learn how to love Reformed theology in their eyes. You see what God's doing here? God is taking a people who are an old people and making us young again by bringing people to us who have a vision for what this congregation can be and should be, who come here expressly for what this congregation is. Often when we want to think that we want a church to grow, we want to be some other kind of church. You know, whatever church is growing, let's be that church. There's a whole history of church growth movements in which basically the advice is find whatever the hottest church is right now and try to do whatever they're doing. I hope Crosspoint never does that. That what Crosspoint does is to invite in the Ruths who see Bethlehem, who see the possibilities, who see the God of Israel in new eyes, and teach us how to love what we had forgotten how to love. Remember where we started? You meet God in the stranger. You meet God in those who come to us. I think this is a congregation in which we're just beginning to discover that. In which we need to be talking to those who are coming to us and saying, what do you find here? Talking to those who are discovering the roots of what we're about. For the Ruths, who taught Naomi not to be bitter, but to embrace the God she once said had neglected her. Crosspoint is a great place. It's a place that, Don and Bruce and others in the past had this great vision of putting a church in this place where we could reach out to the community. But I hope what we understand is that when we reach out, it's not to make them us, whoever them is, but to receive from the ones that God is sending to us a new vision and a new grace. Pray with me for that, will you? Lord our God, for this place, to discover again what we always knew but had forgotten. To take away the bitterness and replace it with loyalty, with hesed. To realize that you will not let us be abandoned, but that you are the God of hesed. You are the God of loyalty, that you love us, and that your love comes to us in all kinds of interesting and strange ways, and that this is the time of the barley harvest, and that you are doing new things among us. Lord God, give us that conviction. In the name of Jesus, amen.